Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a fun video. I've never done anything like this, but I've seen a few other board game YouTubers do something like this, where basically they recommend a game based off of another game that might be more well-known. So I'm kind of calling this, I guess, board game recommendations. If you enjoy A, try B. So I'm going to be giving you guys some games that you might already know, pretty well-known games, and then I'm going to give you a recommendation for something that has some similar things to it. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it might have a similar theme, it might have a similar mechanic, it might just have a similar feel to it in general. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. Just keep on watching if you guys want to see or hear some of my board game recommendations. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also hit that subscribe button if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Comment down below any other recommendations that you have for others watching this video. And without further ado, let's get into this board game video, shall we? All right, so starting off with the first game, this is a game that we have had in our collection for a very long time. It is one of my favorite card drafting games, and I honestly don't think I could ever get sick of this game. I could play this game over and over again, but that game is Seven Wonders. I will be putting the game here that we are going to start with, and then I'm going to bring out something that I recommend if you like that game. So if you enjoy Seven Wonders, then I recommend you try out It's a Wonderful World. So this game I've chatted about a few times here on the channel, and I absolutely love this. I do think we might be playing this today, which I am super excited about. But It's a Wonderful World is published by Ori Games and Lucky Duck Games, and it is a card drafting game, much like Seven Wonders. That is pretty much the only comparison I can really give you between the two. They both have that card drafting mechanism where you're starting the game with a certain amount of cards in your hand. You are looking at those, picking one for yourself, and then passing the rest to your neighbor, either on the left or the right side. And then you're continuing to do that until there are no more cards. And then all of the cards that you have drafted, you are going to be either deciding to construct those cards or starting to construct those cards, or you're going to be recycling those cards in order to get the resources you'll need to construct the cards that you decide to construct. It is this fantastic puzzle of just trying to figure out what resources you need, what cards you want to construct. Once you have constructed cards, some of them will give you more resources to construct more cards in the future. In your production area, your production phase, you'll be getting a bunch more resources in order to place onto other cards. There's this other really cool little mechanism where basically depending on the colors, you will be generating those on your production phase in a certain order. So if you are able to finish a card that gives you green on the first color that I believe might be yellow, I don't actually think it's yellow, I think it's gray. If you are able to finish a card that gives you green during the gray cube addition or production, then you'll be able to get that green in that production phase. So you're kind of trying to put things in order to see if you are able to get more cards into your production before you produce those certain colors. Hopefully that makes sense, but It's a Wonderful World. It really gives you that same feeling, same vibe as Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders is a little bit different, but all of the cards are giving you different scoring things. In It's a Wonderful World, the cards that go into your production do give you some end victory points as well, based off of what cards you have in there and different things. But yes, if you enjoy Seven Wonders, then I recommend checking out It's a Wonderful World. Moving on to the second game. This is a game that, again, we've had in our collection for a very long time. I feel like this is a game that a lot of newer people to the hobby start with when it comes to polyomino tile laying games, and that game is Barenpark. We absolutely love Barenpark. I play it all the time. I've played it some on BGA. It's been a while since we actually played it physically, but I would really love to play Barenpark again. There's also a Bad News Bears or something expansion, which I'd love to get. I've heard that it's very good. But if you do enjoy polyomino tile laying games and you enjoy Barenpark, then I recommend 10 Penny Parks. So 10 Penny Parks is published by Thunderworks Games, and this is, I feel like, the best one if you're wanting one step up from Barenpark. So in Barenpark, you're going to be drafting different tiles and placing them into or on your board in order to create your like bear park. And you're placing these tiles on and trying to fit them perfectly into your park. Whatever icons you cover up, those are the types of tiles that you'll be able to draft for your next turn, so on and so forth until everyone has filled up their park, and then you're going to be scoring based off of what tiles you've placed into your park. It's a pretty simple game, and it's a great game if you're wanting a good intro game into the like polyomino style games. But if you're wanting one step further, I definitely recommend checking out 10 Penny Parks. It has the same feeling where you are building up again this park, this amusement park. In Barenpark, it's obviously more of a zoo, bear park, but in this one, you are adding rides to your board. The difference with this one, though, is that typically in a polyomino style game, you are trying to fit things perfectly and trying to like match things up really nicely in order to fill up the whole space. But in 10 Penny Parks, which I actually enjoy this, some people don't like this so much about 10 Penny Parks, but I really enjoy that you're trying to fit all of these rides into your amusement park, but you're only allowed to attach things by corners. You can never have any rides or stands or anything touch with like flat sides. So you're trying to really orientate, and I think that's the right word, orient? Who knows? But you're trying to place them in the correct spaces in order to try to fit as much into your amusement park as possible. There's also a little bit of worker placement in this game as well, which I love. And then there's also this fun thing where you have trees in your park at first, but throughout the game you are getting rid of those trees in order to place more onto your main board or into your park. So definitely recommend checking out 10 Penny Parks if you enjoy Barenpark. It is such a fun game, and it's just one level up, a little bit more difficult than Barenpark. So that is 10 Penny Parks. All right, so moving into game number 3. This is a game that I feel like pretty much everyone knows. It's a game that is pretty widely known by not just people in the board game hobby, but you know, more casual gamers. And it's one that you can play with your family, and pretty much everyone knows it, and that is Ticket to Ride. So Ticket to Ride is actually one that we decided to call. We are getting rid of Ticket to Ride. It is in a pile over there. Francis doesn't really enjoy it, and I figured that if ever I wanted to play Ticket to Ride, I could just play it on BGA. But yes, if you enjoy Ticket to Ride and like route building games, then the game that I recommend is a little bit bigger of a game. I do think it's a little bit more of a pricey game, but I really want this one in my collection, and that is Imperial Spells and Steam, which I just recently talked about on the channel in my games that we played last month in April. I actually played this at a local con, and I really enjoyed this one, and I feel like it gives the same route building kind of vibe as Ticket to Ride, but it brings in a little bit more. It brings in some like resource management, I guess, and a little bit of an additional like track that you're going up in order to place your trains. And there's like a little bit of asymmetrical player powers, and you can like add more things to each of your spaces to make them more powerful. And we played an 8-player game of this, but I would love to try this out at 2 players, at 4 players. I really think that it would be great at a bunch of different player counts, and I do think it might have a solo variant as well, but I'm not 100% sure. It is a game that I do not have, so I won't be able to really put in a lot of like B-roll and stuff, but I do have a little bit of B-roll from when we played it at my local con, so I'll put that in. But Imperial Spells and Steam is definitely one that I would love to add to the collection, and it's definitely one that I recommend if you enjoy Ticket to Ride. Again, it's a little bit more complicated, adds a few more things to it, but I do think that you would really, really enjoy it. So that is Imperial Spells and Steam. Moving on to another game that I feel like so many people in the hobby and out of the hobby know about, and that game is Splendor. So if you enjoy Splendor, there is one game that I just recently played for the first time that I could see a lot of similarities with, and I do think I remember seeing on YouTube someone make a video comparing these two, and it makes sense now because the game that I recommend you try out is Century or Century Golem. The one that I specifically played was Century Golem, but there is Century Spice Road, there's a few other Century games, and then there are the Century Golem games as well. So I played Century Golem, the first one, and basically in Splendor, you are getting these chips and then using those chips to buy cards, and those cards are going to give you more chips, more permanent chips or I guess the chips represent like diamonds, but they give you more permanent diamonds in order to gain more strong cards and cards that cost a little bit more. So you're kind of like ramping up this really awesome like engine. It feels really good, and the player that is first to, I think it's 15, is the winner. So yes, Century is pretty similar, where you have cards in your hand that you are playing down in order to get crystals, and then you can actually play cards that allow you to exchange crystals and upgrade crystals, and you're just trying to get different colored crystals in order to hand those in to get like contract cards. So there's cards that need like 3 pink crystals, 2 blue, and a yellow. So you're trying to kind of exchange these crystals by playing your cards down in order to get to those colors. I guess there's like a certain upgrade system. So it starts with yellow, goes to green, goes to blue, and then goes to pink. So you're upgrading these crystals and trying to get certain colors, and you're trying to get these different contracts. So I definitely recommend checking it out. The art is absolutely beautiful, and the game itself is very beautiful. Collecting those gems, it's a lot of fun. So if you enjoy Splendor, I definitely recommend checking out any of the Century or Century Golem games, which I will add that the more of the Century Golem games or Century games that you get, you can actually like play them together, which I think is really cool, and it adds more mechanisms and makes the game bigger. So I'm excited to try that out. It actually adds in like some worker placement, which I was told, and oh my goodness, it sounds fantastic, but I am just for the comparison with Splendor talking about the first Century Golem. All right, so moving into the next game, this is a very popular game. I feel like this is a hobby game that is probably like the most popular, if that makes sense. Like most people in the board game hobby really enjoy this game, but it's also pretty popular outside of the hobby. It's a little bit more complicated than the ones I've talked about in the past, but that is Wingspan. I almost showed you guys the one that I'm recommending. The game that I'm talking about is Wingspan. So this one, if you enjoy Wingspan, a game that I am obsessed with right now and definitely recommend if you enjoy Wingspan, is, oh my goodness, Earth. I definitely recommend checking out Earth if you enjoy Wingspan. It's funny because I didn't really see the comparisons. I was actually comparing Earth a lot to like Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, as well as I've heard a lot of people compare it to Ark Nova, but I feel like those are like not the same at all. But I actually, when we were streaming, Francis and I were playing this 2-player, and he started comparing different things in Wingspan with Earth, and it blew my mind the fact that like there's so many things that they have in common. Like he was saying the sprouts in Earth, you're adding sprouts to your cards, are like the eggs in Wingspan. When you are gaining cards, it's like you are gaining cards in like the pond area of Wingspan. You also are activating all of the specific cards of a different color, so you're kind of activating the different rows in Wingspan. There's a lot of similarities between the two, and if you enjoy Wingspan and the act of picking one of the 4 different actions on your turn, doing that action, and then doing or activating all of that specific actions cards, definitely recommend checking this out. It is a fantastic game. It has a lot of hype right now, but I personally think that the hype is definitely like real. It is a fantastic game, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because I've already talked about it so much here on the channel, but it is great multiplayer. We've played it 4 players, we've played it 2 players, I've played it solo a few times. Absolutely love Earth, and if you enjoy Wingspan, I definitely recommend checking out Earth. All right, moving into another game that both games, I actually don't have either of them, but the funny thing is that I played both of these games at my local con recently, and it was funny because they are both very similar, and the fact that I played them both for the first time in one day was kind of funny to me. But one of the games is a game that I feel like a lot of people know here in the hobby, and that is Incan Gold. I definitely recommend if you enjoy Incan Gold, which in Incan Gold, it's basically a push your luck game where you're going into a temple, you are deciding to either leave the temple to gain some sort of treasure, or you're trying to go deeper into the temple, push your luck a little bit. If I believe it's like more than 2 of the same type of monster gets flipped, then everyone dies and loses their treasure. But if you continue to go and you get more and more treasure, then obviously the more you will get, and then you can leave whenever you want. And it's a very fun push your luck game, but I definitely recommend if you want something just a little bit more, the game that I recommend checking out is Megaland. So Megaland is from Red Raven Games, and I don't obviously have it, but I wish I did. It is a Target exclusive, so here in Canada, we unfortunately do not have Target, and I would love to get my hands on Megaland, so if anyone knows where I can get it here in Canada, let me know. But Megaland has a very similar concept to it, where it's again a push your luck game where you're going, I think my friend Tyler mentioned that it's supposed to represent like a platformer, those like video games where you're just going along a straight line. You're basically saying, I'm gonna stay in, I'm gonna continue going on this platformer, a card is flipped. If there is a monster on that card, everyone loses a certain amount of health, but you do gain a treasure, and then every single card that is flipped, you gain a treasure. Some of them are blank, so you can continue going. You're kind of just pushing your luck again to see how long you can stay alive, and then you can bow out at any moment, and then all of the treasure that you have, you keep. And then the cool thing about it is the treasure that you have is not just victory points at the end, much like Incan Gold. It is actually like buying power that you can spend to get different buildings that will actually get you different abilities, get you more treasure, different things like that, some more victory points. And I think it just adds a little bit more to Incan Gold that keeps me interested a little bit more than Incan Gold. I feel like Incan Gold is a good one if you just want like a simple push your luck game that's nice and quick and snappy, but I really enjoy the buying of different buildings and having like a little tableau in front of you of those buildings. And instead of just, you know, a card's flipped and you're done, it's like a card's flipped, you lose a little bit of health, but you can kind of keep on pushing. I really, really enjoyed that. So that is Megaland. If you enjoy Incan Gold, and I recommend checking it out. Moving on to another one. This is a tile laying game that I, again, am getting rid of. It is in my pile over there for calling, and that game is Carcassonne, which I know everyone loves this game. I feel like it's a very like intro level, like new to the hobby tile laying game. I feel like this is one that a lot of people start with. It is a great game, but we just didn't find ourselves reaching for it too often. But in Carcassonne, you are on your turn flipping over a square tile and then adding that square tile to a ever-growing tableau of tiles with roads and different things, and you are placing meeples on certain spots in order to gain points in certain ways. So you can put a meeple on a road, and then once that road kind of gets like capped off, you get points for those, and then you get your meeple back. You can also place your meeples onto different like pastures, and then at the end of the game, based on how big that pasture ends up being, you get victory points for that. And there's different ways to get victory points, but if you enjoy something like Carcassonne, I definitely recommend checking out a game that I've only played once, and it was like 2 months ago at BreakoCon, but that is Small Islands. So if you enjoy Carcassonne, I definitely recommend checking this one out. It's similar where you are flipping over a tile, I believe, or I think you might have a few tiles in your hand that you're choosing from. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've played, but you are picking a tile and then placing it again. It's a square tile into this area where you are creating islands, and those islands are going to have specific icons on them and different spots to place buildings. And at the beginning of each round, you're going to have 3 different objective cards. One you're going to choose to score for that round, so you're going to have it in front of you face down, and then one you're going to decide to keep for the next round, and then the other one you're going to discard. So you have one different objective every single round that you're trying to go for. That could be, oh, you want an island that has this many of this icon and this many of this icon, anything like that, a bunch of different types of objectives, and then you are trying to place buildings onto those specific islands in order to score those objectives. So I believe that it's a little bit, I would say it's a little bit more simple. Maybe it's about the same weight as Carcassonne. I feel like there's more different ways to score in Carcassonne, but I do think that I prefer the style and just the vibe of Small Islands. It's very quick and fun, and I really enjoyed it, and I really want to play it again. So if you enjoy Carcassonne, I definitely recommend checking out Small Islands. All right, so moving on to the next game. The game that I'm going to first talk about is a game that I've played thousands upon thousands of times. I played this as a kid. My mom actually used to have like a digital version of this, but that game is Yahtzee. I love Yahtzee. Basically, you're just rolling dice and then trying to make different combos with those numbers in order to gain points. But I recommend, if you enjoy Yahtzee, or if Yahtzee was a game that you enjoyed in the past, this game right here, Walk and Roll. This game is pretty much Yahtzee, but with food, I guess. There's a little bit more to it, but I absolutely love this game. It is fantastic. Basically, again, much like Yahtzee, you are rolling a bunch of dice and then collecting different icons. There's rice and chicken and broccoli and shrimp, and you're rolling dice, collecting the ones that you want to keep, rolling them again, and then I believe you get, much like in Yahtzee, 3 different rolls. And then with those final icons that you have, you're going to be crossing out some things on this little menu sheet and getting different dishes or cooking different dishes in order to get victory points. And I love this one. Again, if you enjoy Yahtzee and just the act of rolling dice and trying to get as much different like combos and stuff as possible, I recommend this one. That is Walk and Roll. Moving into the last two. I think this one, people might be like, Jenna, what are you talking about? But honestly, I can see the comparison between the two. You guys will have to let me know down below. But the game that I'm going to start with is Pandemic. So if you enjoy Pandemic, which Pandemic is a cooperative game where you are working together in order to get rid of a bunch of different diseases and not have a pandemic. A little bit too close to home, I will say. But the game that I am going to recommend if you enjoy Pandemic is, people are gonna laugh at me so much, Stardew Valley, the board game, which I love this game so much. I think this might be my favorite cooperative game. But my thoughts in my head is that you are cooperatively working together in order to do these certain objectives. You are trying to get rid of these 4 different diseases, work together, you have like a certain amount of actions you can do on your turn, and this just, I don't know, it makes me think of Stardew Valley, the board game, which again is a cooperative game where you have specific amounts of actions that you can do on your turn. You're moving, doing an action, moving, doing an action, all those things in order to work up to a certain amount of goals, much like in Pandemic. But me personally, I do enjoy the theming of Stardew Valley, the board game, a lot more. Pandemic kind of stresses me out, where this one is still a little bit stressful, I will say. It's a very challenging game as well. I don't think we've won yet, but I personally, I've talked about in this past, I really enjoy a challenge and being able to work up to actually successfully beating a challenge and not getting it like on my first play. But yes, I definitely recommend checking out Stardew Valley, the board game, if you enjoy Pandemic. I know that the theming of this might not be for everyone, but I really, really love it, and it is a fantastic game. It does feel a lot like the video game if you enjoy that, but yes, definitely give it a try if you enjoy Pandemic. And the last game that I am going to be chatting about today, this is a game that I've chatted about a few times here on the channel, but the game that I am going to talk about first is Azul. So if you enjoy any of the Azul games, we have the third one, which is Summer Pavilion, but I have tried the first one, which is just the regular Azul. But if you like any of the Azuls, I definitely recommend checking out Vivid Memories. So this one has a very similar feel to me as Azul. It's a little bit more complicated than the base game of Azul, but I do think Queen's Garden, Azul Queen's Garden, is a little bit more complicated as well. So I definitely recommend checking out this one if you want a little bit more weight and a little bit more of a challenge to your game of Azul. Vivid Memories, the theme of it is fantastic, where you are working like as a child's brain, I believe, and your imagination, and you're building off these different like core memories, and oh, it is just absolutely gorgeous. But basically you are drafting tiles or drafting acrylic like tiles off of bigger tiles, if that makes sense. Much like in Azul, you're drafting a certain color and then you're placing them onto your board in order to gain victory points in different ways. But the really cool part of this one is that there are some actions at the top that you are able to do on your turn in order to move those tiles around and kind of fix what you have done, because when you draft them from your like tile on your turn, you have to place them into one of these sections. So then you're using those other actions in order to move the certain colors to certain places in order to score victory points. You can also, you have the bigger tiles that you've drafted that you're going to be putting at the top. They are going to cover up one of those actions, but they get you an additional action that then once you do that, you flip it over, you get some sort of endgame victory points or endgame scoring conditions for yourself. And I really, really enjoy that part of it. So that is Vivid Memories. Again, this is a game that we haven't played in a while, but I would really love to play it again. And I want to see if I can find a solo variant of this one. I'm sure this one, much like Azul, I feel like a fan-made solo variant would be great. So yes, if you enjoy Azul, any of the Azul games, then I definitely recommend checking out Vivid Memories. All right, friends, so that is going to be everything for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing about my recommendations based off of other games. If you like A, then try B. Let me know if you guys want me to do more of these. I feel like I could definitely do more. I really wanted today to focus on a lot of the like more well-known games. If you like these very well-known games, definitely check out these ones that might not be as well-known. So yes, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Comment down below, like I said in the intro, any other recommendations that you guys have based off of these games. I do think that Francis said, if you like Pandemic, try Horrified, but I felt like Horrified was, again, probably like one of the more well-known games, so I'm sure you guys already knew that one. But yes, if you like Pandemic, also try Horrified. It's a great game. But yeah, I love you guys so, so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you guys in the next board game video. Bye, friends.